Good morning, everyone. I wanted to welcome everyone to Davos Worldwide. I think most of you are new to the program and to the community. So I will take a few minutes to just talk a little bit about the idea of Davos Worldwide and our focus on sickle cell. We have now been focused on sickle cell for most of a year. And we have had the privilege of having met Mrs. Vinita Srivastav in India, and having her educate us on the initiatives that had already been in place in India and the new focus that has happened in India about sickle cell disease, specifically about sickle cell anemia. The Honorable Prime Minister's launch of the mission has certainly accelerated and focused a impact effort, especially in tribal communities and in other backward communities and underserved communities. So I think that starting with the testing program and then moving forward into the treatment program, both of which are being paid for by the government, is an amazing step. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Srivastav to introduce herself and introduce the rest of the thought leaders that are involved today. So Mrs. Srivastav, if you would please take on from here.
Thank you, Mr. Anand. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be there on this forum, actually. And I would like to introduce Dr. Tulika Seth, who is a professor in AIMS and hematology department. Then we have Dr. Anupam Sachdeva, who is in Gangaram. He's a pediatric oncologist, and he's been working for these diseases for around, we can say around 25 to 30 years. Same as Dr. Deepti Jain we have. She is the ex-professor from Nagpur Medical College. And it's a pleasure because Dr. Deepti Jain has been working in this area for last 30 years, I can say. And most of the children whom we see surviving in this country is because of her only. Because if you see the Nagpur area and the Maharashtra area, it is always covered by her. And it is always great to see her achievements while saving people and survival of the patients. Thank you. Dr. P.K. Patra is again a big pioneer, and he's about to join. So P.K. Patra has been pioneer in sickle cell disease. He started this program in Chhattisgarh, and it was I mean, the duration, if I see, it was from 2007 when he started this program in Chhattisgarh, and after that, it was this intervention at NHM came in. So his basically his progress we can see from his papers and other very good things which has come as a Sickle Cell Institute in India, and it is only the institute in the country which came up as Sickle Cell Institute. So that is also very important to us, and because of all these pioneer people, we were able to achieve our mission. And Honorable Prime Minister wanted that this mission to go success, and I am thankful to Honorable Prime Minister and our Prime Minister Shri Arjun Munda ji. Because of their efforts, the mission has been taken place. Thank you.
Excellent. I also see that Dr. Deepti Jain is also on the program. So if you would be so kind as to give us a brief introduction, Dr. Jain, that would be terrific. We would love to hear a little bit about you as well.
Deepti, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Vinita, for your kind words. I have been a professor of pediatrics at a public hospital, teaching hospital in Nagpur. And it was in 1983 that we started a sickle cell clinic at a government medical college in Nagpur. We started with 10 patients, and I'd not seen a child more than 10 years in those days with sickle cell disease. And then I continued to work, and through different projects, I could progress and give more facilities to the patients, starting from investigations to treatment, to prenatal diagnosis and everything. Like now, I accept marrow transplant. We can do everything at here. And there has been a progress in the way, like we started with the very simple sickling test, and now we are here with point of care and HPLC and PCR. So the progress has been significant, more so in the last 2 decades. And in those days, we were people in pockets working on sickle cell disease. Like I was working, Dr. Patra was working, Dr. Patel, late Patel from Odisha. So we were all working in our own world. And I must admit that it was, I never thought that sickle cell will achieve what it has achieved today. But it was Dr. Vinita who was the bridge between us and the government, I should say. We were working, not that we were not working, but to make it visible, to bring it at this level, I never thought, because sickle cell was neglected. Let me tell you, of all the diseases, I never even thought, nobody wants to work for sickle cell disease. That was my experience 10 years back. But now it has been everyone wants to work on for patients and sickle, and I'm so happy for that. And I think there are so many companies, corporates who are also coming in, joining, and work and are interested in working for sickle cell disease. I'm really happy for that. And now we have patients. Now, initially I had children, but now I have more adults. There are 60% adults in my cohort, and newborn screening also. My oldest patient is 27 years old, and I think 30 to 40% would be children. I think this is
And
where I would like to end. Yeah. Anything specific, I'll be happy to answer.
yeah, that is wonderful to hear. And certainly, we can understand that. I personally did not know about sickle cell as being a major crisis, and the severity of the disease, and specifically not in India. We kind of grew up in thinking that sickle cell disease was something that was confined in sub-Saharan Africa, and largely affected that area, and that it was not a significant disease. It was a rare disease. So taking that moniker of rare disease, because there are probably approximately only about 100,000 patients in the US, and probably the same amount in Europe, a little bit more. The pharma side of the business never really focused on this. And if my understanding is correct, there was really no medication for sickle cell for the longest time, until a chemotherapy agent was repurposed as a drug for sickle cell. So if you would be so kind as to give us a little bit about that, Dr. Jan, that would be amazing.
Okay. When I started, we used to give ORS packet, not even folic acid. The patient used to come to me because I used to give only oral rehydration solution to the patients because I didn't know what to give. Then started with folic acid. And I think it was in 90s that we could give penicillin V prophylaxis till the age of 5 years. Hydroxyurea was the drug, which I learned because I was in North America for some time, and I saw that penicillin and hydroxyurea was offered to the patients. And we started, it was a very small RCT, 30-30 in each arm, with hydroxyurea in 2000. And that too, in those days, hydroxyurea was very expensive, 32 rupees for a capsule, which was a lot for my patients, for me too. And it was a philanthropist who, I think he was the one who gave us hydroxyurea for 10 years, till government of Maharashtra made it free because our patients were not able to give. So with this penicillin prophylaxis, hydroxyurea, then came the immunization, because that was quite costly affair. And so we also included the immunization. And then government of Maharashtra specifically started giving all these medicines free. And that is why we could offer all this to our patients with sickle cell disease. Then came, I think, last 8 years back, I started a study. I was a part of a study of crisanlizumab. That is what I have experienced. And now glutamine, not the molecule which should be used for sickle cell disease. We are using the sachets which are given to malnourished children. And that is not the right thing, I know, but that has been practiced. And I think that's it. Anything more or specific, I'll be happy to answer. But let me tell you, it was Mr. Arjun Mundra, our tribal minister, who really came out with all these facilities and this elimination of sickle cell disease also was, I think, briefed to Prime Minister by him. And I think really the credit goes to him.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Certainly. Professor Tulika, you know, what has your experience been on sickle cell disorder?
So I'm in the north in a tertiary referral center. So we're not an endemic area like Dr. Deepti Jain and Dr. Patra, but we get patients from all over the country who come to us with complications and recurrent crisis. And we offer them the treatment for these complications. We have patients who come to us with hepatic problems and cardiac problems. And so we are able to diagnose them with the special tests that we have and put them on a regimen that not only treats their complications, but will prevent further complications. So we tend to see the more serious cases who are not responding to treatment or have been started on treatment late. And we have come to realize that sickle cell disease is not just a blood disorder. It affects almost every organ of the body, right from the brain to the kidneys, to the liver, to the bones. And unless these patients are properly treated and properly managed, they have a very high risk of complications and a reduced life expectancy. However, with the appropriate tests that we have available and the treatment that we have available in India, which includes bone marrow transplant, we are able to provide a good quality of life and improve the treatment of many of our patients.
Oh, wonderful. Let me switch over to Dr. Patra. Dr. Patra, what has your experience been, and how do you see the new sickle cell mission leapfrogging all the efforts that have happened for the last few decades and really bringing forward the treatment options for sickle cell and making it a mass program, very well coordinated across India now?
Good evening, and thank you very much. In sickle cell anemia, as initially I was working in Odisha, that is in the very long back, that is from 1985 to 90. Then I came to the Raipur, that is in Chhattisgarh. Present I am working. So they are, I saw that is gradually we did, and we found there are 10% population is suffering from the sickle cell disorder here. And that time, as Dr. Deepti Jain and was telling about, that time there was no conventional mode of treatment or any supportive treatment, and we are just giving sickle cell for the sickle cell folic acid. But at the government support, that is the Chhattisgarh state government, we initiated a counseling and screening, counseling and management program, very systematic way. Then door-to-door survey we did. There is near about 2 million people I surveyed, and we found the 10% prevalence, and the public awareness I created, and the public came for the treatment. That we started giving hydroxyurea regularly, and the great achievement I got, that is the awareness. The public, the patient, person, the social reformer, that policy maker, and the social leader. So they all become very aware, and they counsel themselves their common people. Government started giving counseling. So that is the good achievement we got in Chhattisgarh. So that at least to homozygous, heterozygous people we segregate. Hello, heterozygous and homozygous we segregate, and they regularly coming for the treatment and counseling. So that is a great achievement we got. And in the now the government of India, with the help of Dr. Binita Srivastava, she is the bridge between us, and from the Ministry of Tribal Affairs and the government of India, they announce a mass program here. So as a sickle cell worker, we feel very happy, and that government of India now started a very huge program in India, and mainly focusing in the tribal population. And we ready to help this whatever possibility we can have in from our state as a worker, as the government has now started as a policy things. So I think it is a good time for the sickle cell, and so many workers now interested to work in the field of sickle cell. So I think it is a very good time, and we are very happy, and happy to we happy that you people are also coming forward and now interested for working in the sickle cell. Any specific thing, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dr. Sachdeva, you have a different view of different perch from where you view sickle cell. Could you please give us a little introduction about yourself and your work in blood-related disorders and specifically in sickle cell?
Good evening, everybody. I'm basically a pediatric hematologist oncologist trained in UK, and I trained at the hemoglobinopathies lab under Bernadette Model. After coming back to India in 1992, I started working at Sir Gangaram Hospital, which, just like AIMS, is a tertiary care center, but it's on the it's not a public this thing, but it's a charitable trust hospital. It has a program for training in pediatric hematology oncology, and also in pediatrics and other branches. So we have been treating sickle patients who were referred to us from the scheduled areas, and we've been using hydroxyurea with no problems at all. And now we are actually doing even stem cell transplants in these patients, and with good results. My journey with sickle cell started with some of our patients, and then in the 3 years back, Shri Arjun Mundaji, the Honorary Minister of Tribal Affairs, formulated a committee, and then we put together the roadmap for this mission. Now, in this roadmap, we have gone up to the level of the ANMs and the Anganwadi workers also, and made some instructions for them. We have also formulated as to what has to be treated at which level of service. For example, how to give home care, when do you give home care, when do you shift them to the next level of treatment, and so on and so forth, right up to the regional centers. There is a big need of training of personnel, both medical officers, lab technicians, nurses, and also need for training at a higher level for gynecologists for CVS and for genetics, evaluation. So the task is enormous, it's onerous, but at the same time, I think the way the government has picked it up and has gone ahead with it, it is quite achievable, and it is known that India has, whenever it has come into the mission mode, it has actually delivered very well. For example, our oral polio vaccine program, and now the measles and rubella program, and so on and so forth. We have taken care of tetanus and other, and we can utilize the same network of people, including professionals like pediatricians and the organizations there of to take care of these patients. In addition to that, we need to get industry on board, and we did make a effort to get the Confederation of Indian Industries and the FICCI on board, and shortly we'll have a meeting with them to sort of do CSR activity by bringing in more money for areas. A sort of a beginning was made by Coal India, which is subsidizing the transplants in these patients, and they are offering almost like 1 million rupees for a transplant, in which usually costs 1.2 to 1.5 million rupees. And we hope that we will be able to take care not only of this of screening program, but also of the management, because if you give good offer, you offer good management, it will also give a fillip to the screening program. And thankful to the Minister of Tribal Affairs, who's brought in a fresh air of breath, fresh air in the whole program by involving tribal chiefs, tribal panchayats, and other. And we have actually, under the guidance of the DP ma'am, we have made the ICE program protocol for schools, for teachers, for lay public in that area. In fact, we were discussing only 2 days back that we should have street plays to highlight the problem in schools and sort of bring it together. And we showed the Honorable Minister one of our concepts of a street play, and he liked it, and he said that we'll introduce it in the schools all over the area to sort of mobilize. It's important that we know that we should know that even if we have the facilities, if the population does not access the facilities, the whole program will be a no-go. So we need to involve the population at every level, even including the health ojas, what we call as the soothsayers or local health leaders, to get our program up and running. I think we have made a beginning. It will take another sort of few months to fine tune it and get it onto the fast lap. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as a follow-up question, I mean, it seems like public awareness is a essential element of sickle cell, and we see that in the West as well. Just to kind of give you some statistics, in the US, of the approximately 100,000 patients, as you guys may know, only about 25% are actually under regular treatment and are following up on care. And typically, the manifestation of a crisis event is where there's a first introduction to sickle cell for that patient and their history. And that has led to a lot of problems. Are you seeing a lot of that in India as well, as there's almost a stigma of not identifying oneself as a sickle cell sufferer or something like this?
Absolutely. I agree with you. We will have problems. We are having problems with the stigmatization of these things. In fact, only when we started, there was a big article in one of the newspapers in Maharashtra saying that this will stigmatize the tribal population. So we have to surmount that problem and bring it in perspective that we are just making a diagnosis, or we are just doing the testing. The patient is actually having the problem before that, and we are just we are approaching the problem with our eyes open, and only if we keep our eyes open, then only we can give some succor or treatment or this thing. But there will be problems. And in fact, one of the institutes in the tribal areas is going in for what we call as formative and implementation research to find out and unfurl it in the region of Deoghar to find out what are the issues which we may face in these patients, and then fine tune it for us so that we can run it across the country. Remember that India is a very heterogeneous population, and we will have to make programs and ICE material for different kinds of populations who have different faiths, different their traditional traditions, etc. So we have made a beginning, but we need to cover a lot of distance before we are able to say anything about it.
Thank you so much. Continuing with that, Dr. Seth, what would you suggest is the critical challenge that you are facing? And then we'll ask the same question of Dr. Jain.
So I think the major problem is the magnitude of our country and its large population. So the sickle cell gene, there actually is a lot of research, and they found that it had a unicentric origin. So all the tribals, even though they seem to be, in Gujarat and Tamil Nadu and so many regions of the country, but they were actually the original inhabitants of our country. And because of the subsequent migrations and other things, the tribals have now been segregated. But another important thing to note is that sickle cell is not just a disease of the tribals, it is also present in the non-tribals. But I think it's really apt that the Ministry of Tribal Affairs and Shri Arjun Munda have taken a lead in looking at this problem, which has unfortunately been kind of neglected. Hemoglobinopathies as a whole, that's including thalassemia and sickle cell, are a large part of the anemia burden that we see in our country. So I think screening the tribal population is a very important first step, but the magnitude of the problem is very large. Even after we've screened all the tribal population, there will still be the non-tribal population, which is also afflicted with sickle cell. And in fact, we often see patients who come to us in their 30s who have never even been diagnosed with sickle cell disease, and they come with avascular necrosis of the head of the femur, which is basically a degenerative disease of the hip bone. But this is very rare and in normal people, but is very common in sickle cell disease. And so at our center, we have instituted patients who come with these unusual problems to have a sickle cell test done immediately. And we are finding a large number of patients. So so one is the large number. Second is the variability of the presentation. So we can have some patients who present with recurrent and severe vaso-occlusive crisis as children. So these patients have a more severe phenotype. And then you can have the other spectrum where these patients may actually be fairly asymptomatic until adulthood, when they present to the hospital with the end result and the end organ damage and the complications. So there's a huge variability. The third important impediment that we have is that there isn't a lot of awareness about genetics and genetic diseases. People are very aware about infections and some lifestyle disorders. So we need to make sure that they understand about genetics and how that's preventable. Prenatal testing, of course, is something that should be offered only when the population desires that. And that, of course, will take time. And we also have very few centers where prenatal testing is there. So the roadmap that Dr. Sachdev described is a very important roadmap, because we are concurrently going to be increasing awareness, increasing competencies, and engaging with the population to do the screening programs and to offer good treatment. So it's a multi-pronged approach, and we have to make sure that we do each of the steps carefully. And we want to make sure that there's a lot of community participation and good communication, because this program is basically for their benefits and we need to make sure that they understand what is going on, and that if there are any issues that we are aware of them, and we partner with them rather than having a sort of a top-down approach. So we're very excited about this move, and I think not only will it help for sickle cell, but there are still the last mile, or rather, as our Prime Minister calls it, the first mile, which is really accessing the patients in the remote areas. So I think this is an opportunity for us through the sickle cell mission to improve the healthcare of patients in this last or first mile, so that for other diseases as well, they will have better access and better treatment facilities.
Wonderful, thank you. Dr. Jain, your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I would say India is in different phases regarding awareness, facilities, infrastructure. For example, Rajasthan a year back said very few number of sickle cell exists there. But I happened to be there last month, and we know it's as much as in Nagpur. So I think it's not the epidemiology which is changing, they were not detected. And more states are coming up with sickle cell patients. That is one thing. Second, I think my biggest challenge is, we know that the Indian haplotype is different. It's Arab Indian, which has very high hemoglobin F levels. And I think all across in India, our hemoglobin F level, our F level is between 14 to 25%, which in Europe and US is between 3 to 5%. So our hemoglobin F is high. It is different. With that, I was always looked with a very surprising thing, that how this girl from India says she has high hemoglobin F and has severe disease. So this was the, at global, at international level, this was, but it is true that we have pockets of very severe, I would say Central India is the severest form of sickle cell disease we have, and we have all sites of patients. The other thing, what I want to tell is, like, we are extrapolating the protocols available, existing protocols from cooperative study from US and Europe to Indian population, which I think I'm now learning is not always appropriate. We may need revisions for our patients. They are different. We need to have specific protocols. Maybe what is there in Nagpur is different in other parts of country. But I think that is what I have got the biggest challenge. And it is very difficult to convince the physicians. My patients, let me tell you, with awareness, I have seen a sea change. They know much better than many of our physicians also about sickle cell disease. But it's very difficult to change when there are protocols existing and which have been followed. And now I think we need to have a good multi-centric study in India and look at that thing. I think this is my biggest challenge I have.
Yeah, one of the very interesting, just to follow up on that, one of the more interesting thought and learnings that we've had so far in our discussions, we just had a meeting of one of our think tanks on sickle cell here in LA. And the challenge, I suppose, is that front-facing doctors, such as emergency ER doctors, are sometimes not well enough trained in recognizing symptoms of sickle cell, and that the pain crisis or the pain measurement scales tend to be very subjective and very different from one hospital to the next, and that this tends to be a challenge. And that while pain in for instance in cancer or anything is not actually causing damage, my understanding is that in sickle cell, pain is an indication of actual damage, specifically to organs. So if the pain crisis is not being mitigated, there's actually damage occurring. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that is what I always say, treat pain as a disease now, just not as a symptom. All these days we were treating pain as a symptom. And I think the awareness in our part, and I'm always, wherever I give a talk, I think with each pain, episode, there is underlying organ damage going on at micro level, which we are not seeing. That is what I always tell my patients also, explain them, and even the physicians. I totally agree with you. We have to control pain. And I think now with more awareness, I think at national level, maybe the physicians are also educated. And I think there would be a time when a patient comes, he must be attended in, like it's in, I know emergency in US, they must be attended within 20 minutes. The drug must be given within first 20 minutes when they go to the casualty. I think such things would come to India also, which is there in my hospital, but not all over. I think it will soon come everywhere.
And then coming back to to kind of the more interesting thing that we're learning is that whilst again sickle cell is being looked at with a lens of saying this is a tribal affairs or a tribal health issue, really the numbers are different. The numbers that we are seeing here, for instance, from our research team, is saying that perhaps the number of sickle cell patients is actually higher in non-tribal populations as a percentage across India. What are your thoughts on this?
I think I am in the center of India, and I have most of the population from non-tribal in my place, Nagpur. But if I travel 100 kilometers from here to Gadchiroli, Chandrapur, Gondia, there I will find tribal population. But I would say non-tribal would be more than tribal in our area. I can tell about my area.
Dr. Sachdeva, what are your thoughts on this?
Small surveys across the country have shown that non-tribals are also having a significant number of sickle cell disease patients. And now with the migration of the people also, there is a lot of admixture of tribals with the non-tribals, and also admixture of sickle with beta thalassemia and all those things. So it is to actually put things in perspective, like you said, that emergency doctors should be trained to recognize. The Ministry of Tribal Affairs is actually planning to train over 10,000 medical officers in the next 3 months to take care of patients with sickle cell disease. And similarly, the Ministry of Health is planning to train 10,000 plus ANMs and workers at the lower level to recognize the symptoms so that we are able to catch the patients earlier and also give them treatment and mitigate their disease at an earlier stage rather than when they have actually had major complications. So the plan is already there. We actually, Dr. Dipti Jain, Dr. Tulika, myself, we have made a training of trainers manual, which was also released by the PM. And in the next 3 months, we'll be putting that into action. So by the end of this year, we should have at least 10,000 doctors trained in sickle cell disease, and also another 10,000 workers trained in sickle cell disease.
Right. And so do you think that a shift in education is required at institutional level where doctors are originally being trained? So for instance, if you look at some other rare disease vectors, such as concentrations of Japanese encephalitis in parts of the country and stuff like that. And so when a student is going through a medical school curriculum, if they are not being taught about the significant indigenous diseases and are really following a broad kind of more Western curriculum, then they're not really concentrating on local disease. Do you think that there's been a significant change in that in the curriculums?
There is a change in the curriculum in the National Medical Council also, and we are now. The problem is that as everybody's been talking about, that the north of India does not have that much of sickle cell disease as the central parts of the country. So the training, although the training is uniform, the diseases are, all diseases are taught, but unless and until you see a patient and sort of see a patient of a particular disease regularly, you're not able to make a diagnosis properly. So those who train in North may not be as adept at recognizing sickle cell disease earlier on as compared to the people in the central parts of the country or as compared to people from Maharashtra, etc. So our focus is on training people who are in that region specifically. So all these workshops and all these training sessions will be held in those specific areas. So, so what we are planning is that we hold 5 or 6 workshops in Delhi for training people from there. And then those people will go and train people in their district, 1 to 2 workshops in each district, so that, we train the appropriate people rather than training people from, say, from Punjab or Delhi or Haryana. It's much better to train people from these states and give them the, empower them to treat their patients properly.
Got it. So we're going to be wrapping up soon. So I wanted to ask everyone to provide a 2-minute kind of thing of what what the sickle cell anemia elimination mission means to them. And may I start with you, Dr. Seth?
So I think one of the most important shifts that's actually spearheaded this whole program is the advent of the point of care testing, because that has always been a stumbling block for us, because doing an HPLC in order to diagnose sickle cell was really difficult. And even though electrophoresis was there, but technically it's quite cumbersome. So the point of care testing, I think, has really revolutionized the way that we are going to be able to immediately diagnose patients when they present to the healthcare system, rather than, doing a test and wait and having them come back for a report, which in the tribal areas doesn't happen. And we'll be able to do large scale screening of patients. So this is, I think, one of the most exciting things, and is, I think, really going to help us in this program that we have.
Dr. Jain, what would be your parting thoughts?
I would say that we'll be diagnosing more sickle patients. So we have to be ready with the infrastructure and how to handle them with medicine and other, like we are going to do in all antenatal women, we are going to screen for sickle cell disease. But we should have at the same time facilities for prenatal diagnosis. Just diagnosing them and leaving them is not enough. And with this elimination, I'm sure, I think eradication, elimination are difficult words, but I would say there will be control. Let us have midterm, short-term, and long-term goals of how we are going to reduce the number of birth of SS patients. That is my main interest. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Dr. Patra, your parting thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. As I'm 100% agree with you, Dr. Deepti Jain, that there should be a comprehensive approach for sickle cell anemia program, as it is now the program is launched. So that the approach should be either at a point of care testing, or it is very easy and very, I think, for an Indian scenario, it's very important also, and it is very convenient. And if with the semi-skilled persons, we can do the screening, so that when your person-to-person contact is there, so screening and counseling part awareness is very easy, so that they should be diagnosed, counsel, and they should be advised for proper management. We should not leave that just screen and diagnose and leave as the patients. So patients should be very systematically approached with the medication, whatever the medication as the hydroxyurea, folic acid, or any newer medicines, or for advanced treatment like bone marrow transplant or cell therapy, whatever it may be. So there should be a comprehensive approach, and also simultaneously we have to have a awareness program among the social leader and political person also, so that it will be easy to do the program. So that is my submission, is there should be a comprehensive approach, and there should be one referral unit so that the molecular diagnosis for like this, the prenatal diagnosis or any molecular diagnosis need to be there. There should be there also. That is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patra. And Dr. Sachdeva, coming back to you, your parting thoughts on this.
Just to assure everybody, with Mrs. Vinita Srivastava, we worked out at each level of care what are the equipment, what are the personnel we require at each level, and we have also found out what are the lags in each level at every state. And we'll try to plug those lags and try to give, because as I said, that if your treatment is good, your counseling and screening will get a fillip. Otherwise, if you just do counseling and screening, it will not be of much help. So we are actually having a comprehensive approach, and in due course of time, we'll have those people who can do a CVS and a genetic analysis at almost every level of care, at every tertiary care center in that part of the country. So rest assured, things are being put in place. We have all thought these things together, and we know the roots, and with the kind of political will which has been added, we can be pretty sure that things. In fact, the other day we had a meeting where we were discussing hemoglobinopathies, and the speaker of the Lok Sabha was also there, Shri Om Birlaji, who's from Kota in Rajasthan, which again is a high density area of thalassemia and other hemoglobinopathies. And the industry was there, the doctors were there, the bureaucrats were there, Niti Aayog, Dr. Vinod Paul was there. And we said that although the industry has to do CSR, and I said that we are ready to do what is called as PSR. And Ms. asked me, what is PSR? I said, professional social responsibility thing. Just like CSR, we have doctors doing PSR, so that we give our, in Hindi we call it a Shramdan. We give our bit to the society from whom we have taken so much from the society. One of my teachers said that, remember that you have learned your medicine on poor patients, patients who are from the lower socioeconomic class. So it is bounden upon you to give back to those patients whatever you have learned in your medicine, so that you are giving it back to those people who actually made you learn medicine. And I think that is what every doctor should understand. None of us have ever learned our medicine on rich patients. They won't let you touch you, okay? They won't even let you touch them. So once we realize that, I think things will pan out and they will go in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Coming back to Mrs. Srivastava, from this conversation, what we are learning is that you are a pivotal point in not only bringing together the experts from around India, but have created a comprehensive program with them and guided the ministry as well as industry on how to move forward with sickle cell. May I please request your closing thoughts?
So it was nice to hear everybody, and Mr. Ansen, you can very well hear from everybody because they have all been involved in this mission from very beginning. And the mission came up with all these suggestions. And when Honorable Prime Minister visited in 2013-14, when he visited Japan, he said, why not sickle cell mission in India? It was his thought when he said that we need to have a gene editing thing over here in India. We came up with that also, and he wanted that there should be a shift management as well for the services and for the medicines and drugs also. So we are planning to go ahead with those things, and comprehensive management has been told by all our speakers, which is very well said, that we need to have a very good referral mechanism from PSC to the topmost, because now a patient, if he comes to the PSC, he should get equal treatment over there. And once he requires some specialization, he needs to be sent to the center of competencies, which we are coming up with. So all these things are being put into place. There was a gap analysis which was done. And why in tribals? Because I would also like to say here, because we had a screening of tribals for 1 CR people, 1 crore people were screened. And it was found that it is more in tribal areas. So that's why the area that the tribal was, I mean, this announcement was made from 0 to 40 people will be screened, from 7 crore people will be screened from tribal areas, which is because we had the basics and we had all these data with us. So now if you see in the entire country, it is equally, as my speakers have said, that it equally in tribal and non-tribal as well. But because the tribal data is very strong, if you see ICMR, which has done the data in Jan Vigyan project also. So all these data were done in tribal areas only. And that's why we have a very strong database about the tribals. But yes, when we are doing this screening, we are also thinking that we have to take care of the non-tribal as well. But the screening has been done in most of the areas where we have more than 50% of the tribal areas. So this is the key objective of the program, that how the mission is going to launch. I mean, it's already launched. And I'm very happily saying that every part, I mean, each and bit is now joining the hands. That is very important. If I talk about IMA, they are joining hands. If I talk about Gynecologist Association, they are joining hands. If I talk about pediatric associations, they are joining hands. If I am talking about anybody, even Panchayati Raj, every ministry has joined hands to come up for the mission. And it's all credit goes to our Honorable Prime Minister and our Minister, Shri Arjun Munda, because this was a political will as well as a people's will. I should say the patient's will, the professionals' will, and the political will all came together, and that's why the mission came up. Now the concern is that how to go about it. So now we have done a very good gap analysis at our country level. If I start from the PSC-CFC, which is the first unit to go to for the patients, that is PSC. So we are also taking care of all the assessments that have been done. We are trying to strengthen these services at PSC to tertiary care. One thing is that then we have come at the awareness when we talk about stigmatization. It's very important that awareness should be done. So what Dr. Deepti and Dr. Anupam and Dr. Tulika said, that we came up with the counseling modules and the awareness modules. We have, which has been just released by our Honorable Prime Minister on 1st of July. And it was, it was a blessings to us that we could release that. And the small committee was constituted at Ministry of Tribal Affairs with the collaborative efforts of Ministry of Health also. So all these collaborative efforts have given us a wider look, saying this is a time when the awareness is very important, and not awareness in only in Hindi and English. It's now into the tribal languages as well. So if you see the AVs which have been just came up, they are all in Kui languages, all tribal beels, you can find in different languages. Now where people has to understand, yes, it is connected to us. We need to connect people. See, myths and stigmas can only be taken up when we connect with people. So we are mobilizing the communities, the tribal healers. The community has been mobilized. We are getting the people from the community to tell them, teach them. Yes, this is a time this you should know about, and then they are going to teach their community. So community mobilization is very important, which we are taking up. The second thing which is very important for us, just less people said, yes, once the awareness is done, it should be followed by the screening immediately. So now what the plan, which is plan of action, which has been prepared all over in the already in the country, is like that once we do the awareness programs, and after that, immediately the screening should be taken place. Because until next screening is being taken place, it will be very difficult that it can be lost. The awareness can be lost. So the screening and immediate counseling. So the counseling units has to be established. This is very important, which we are also planning to have a counseling unit across the country. And all these things have been simultaneously, the research has been taken care. As I said, that IGIB is well dwelled into for the CRISPR research, which will be, we have already started and the first trial is already going on. The second thing which we came up with the medications and for the vaccinations also, which is very important. So all these things are being taken care by the Ministry of Health in the way of saying like vaccinations, all the vaccinations are being included in RBSK, which is one of our, and adolescent programs also. So all these things are being taken place, which was not added earlier. Now it's been added into the existing guidelines as well. The protocols has been changed, as Dr. Sachdeva said, that there was a committee who came up with the model of training of trainers for the tertiary and secondary care, which is very important. So this model is for medical officers. These medical officers are to be trained, and entire country has to be trained. Now we are planning to have a good training. So we are going to start in August first week itself, and we are going to train we will train our master trainers, those who will be from AIMS across the country, because we have now many AIMS in every state, and all these AIMS will be the main coordination body for us. So these will be the people who will coordinate with entire state, and because when we needed a one coordination person at every state level, so AIMS has become the coordination part for us, and we are coordinating with the AIMS and putting everything together with entire state. And the small committees have been constituted at the state level, where it is the professionals from, if you can see, the professionals are there. All departments are joined hands. So we are getting, because we need to go ahead with the education department also. We need to go ahead with the Panchayati Rot also. So there's a small committee constituted at the state level, which consists of all departments. So where we are planning to have a good awareness and simultaneously followed by the screening and counseling.
That's wonderful to hear, Mr. Srivastav. Thank you so much. India's multidisciplinary approach to making this happen, I think, is going to be an example for the world to see on how to manage a complex problem across a complex population set. So I thank you again, everybody, for joining. Unfortunately, we are out of time. But we look forward to continuing this discussion on this forum, as well as in our think tanks. So once again, thank you everybody for joining. We look forward to seeing you soon.